You're unmuted.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. It is 1:30. I'm going to call this meeting to order. This is the Benzie County Board of Commissioners study session. Today is February 10th, 2026. We are in the Frank Walter House boardroom. Could I ask for a roll call, please?
Jeanette,
Here.
Markey,
Here.
Matthews,
Here.
Nye,
Here.
Roloff,
Here.
Sauer,
Here.
Craig.
Here. We go. Very good. Please rise and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Please be seated. We have an agenda before us. Are there any additions or changes?
Jeanette moves to approve the agenda as presented.
Well, second.
Okay, motion and support. All in favor, say aye. Opposed? That motion carries. We have minutes from January 13th to consider.
Howard moves to approve the minutes as presented.
Matthew seconds.
We have a motion and support. Is there further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Opposed? That motion carries as well. And that brings us to our first public comment. Is there anyone who would like to speak? Seeing none, I will close public comment and look to Leslie for our HR updates.
Yeah.
Okay. I saw that.
Not a lot of updates. We do have a couple full-time staff put in their notices, so we have an opening. Well, should I anticipate an opening for EMS? We had a full-time EMS staff member put in their resignation. And then also Deputy Mall will be, I think I can say where?
Oh, yeah, it's
Yeah.
public.
Yeah, it's public, going to the city of Frankfurt. So we have two great staff that we are losing, but we're excited for them and what their future holds. Don't have any openings in the county building right now. And the other is pretty status quo that's on the website. So very brief HR updates for you.
Do you do exit interviews still?
I think that's really kind of based on department, if they ask for that exit interview or not, or if that person asks for one as well. And I haven't been notified that I'll be a part of any exit interviews.
Okay.
So.
Any other questions for Leslie? Thank you. And our first topic for continued discussion is discussion regarding a letter of intent with Homestretch for housing expansion. And Katie, I'll let you lay the groundwork for that.
Yes, so I'm going to try to open up what John gave us. Which one is it, John? Up there. All of that. Okay. So John and I spoke not too long ago about this very interesting idea, long-term idea about maybe somehow implementing EMS into the housing development that's happening in Thompsonville, known as Crystal Common. This is something that was just, as part of this long-term planning for county services, not only EMS, but all county services. Just, this is another idea to explore as we look to the future of what Benzie County services look like as we provide them to the county. And so John thought it was a really cool idea also to explore a little further. So that got him thinking about these different applications and funding sources and, different things to support the project, support a partnership as it relates to the project. And that's what overall led us to this idea of a letter of intent. The letter of intent is a non-binding, but what that does is it says that Benzie County is interested in exploring this opportunity with Homestretch going forward for funding through the CDBG. This letter of intent too does not say that we apply for that grant, because we have to be invited to apply for the grant based on their thought process on the letter of intent and the project as proposed. And so John is in front of us today to kind of go through that, talk about that, what that looks like from a county and his standpoint for future funding for any sort of housing expansion. I would guess we'll get into the project in general, just so you have an update on Crystal Commons. And then we'll go from there.
Welcome, John. I will have you introduce yourself for the benefit of the folks online.
Okay, wonderful. John Stimson with Homestretch Nonprofit Housing Corporation. I'm a Leelanau County resident, but I work in Benzie County more and more, seems each year, and we've had some success down here in this county. I handed out one copy of the PUD that's approved for 32 units for Crystal Commons, which is on the corner of Lindy and Weldon Roads, just opposite the entrance of Crystal Mountain. The planned unit development is for 32 units, but we are allowed to do it in phases. So my thought was originally that we would do 3 phases, maybe 10 units, 10 units, and 12 units. I tried to get funding for that, and the first phase of about 12 units, I really am struggling. We cannot afford to bring the water main from Crystal Mountain down to the site to the tune of $850,000 some odd dollars. That's a lot of cost to add to 12 units. Now, if it were amortized over 32 units, the per unit cost for the water facility would be a lot lower. But to have the county absorb in that area 32 units is probably a stretch, just based on my judgment of working in the county for quite some time now. And so we thought, well, maybe we can do the 12 units. There's a problem with 12 units in that they too can't suffer the cost of $800,000 water. But on top of that, I could put in a private well and just serve those 12 units. But there's a rule at the health department that they won't allow more than 24 occupants on a private well. And that's probably the easiest way to get the development started, is just to put in a private well. Cost probably $30,000 across 12 units. That probably would be doable. But 12 units is going to be in excess of 24 occupants. So then I thought, well, turn that page over, and there's one phase of 8 units, which would be able, to be serving on a private well. So 8 units, we've done that in Sutton's Bay. We've done that in the Village of Honor. It's a successful way to do the project because it's low cost and it's all private. So I can put in a private well and a septic system, have our own sort of municipal, facility there. And I can amortize that over a 40-year loan. And in fact, we don't have to pass that cost on to the tenants in Honor and in Sutton's Bay. They don't pay for water and sewer. So right there is going to save tenants about $110, $120 a month, depending on what the rates are. So I think that's probably the best way to go, is an incremental 8 units, private well. And to do that is still going to require quite a bit of fundraising. Katie, in that I had sort of a breakdown of what the costs are. There's a PowerPoint in there.
Oh, right there.
Yeah. Might be a little difficult to see, but
I'm going to share it on Zoom real quick too.
okay. Sure.
Everyone see that?
Way I can control it. Or...
Let me. Oh, and you just click.
Advance it.
Yep.
All right. So I was going to print this out, but I thought that's a lot of paper and can do this just on the computer screen. This is the site right up here in the top left, top right, where the triangle piece is that was donated to us by Weldon or by Crystal Mountain. Going forward, there's the plan at the end of the airport runway that was approved. And there's what you have in front of you. That's the full build out. What I was trying to get to on this slide was showing you the extent of which the water main would have to be brought in. And then here's the quote actually from Alpers Excavating for that cost. Now, if I were to do all of the units in a phased approach at 12 units, I would need to raise $2,567,000. If I had gotten a grant that I applied for last year through my neighborhood for 1.2 million, and if I had received a AHP grant award from the Federal Home Loan Bank for $1 million, I would have had $416,000 still yet to raise. That fell apart, and that's why I'm just taking you down the line of the idea that we go to this 8-unit phase to start off with. So the ramifications of that, and I wanted to disclose to you what our rent structures are. So knowing what the rents are in our other 2 projects, 50% and 60% is probably the sweet spot. So if I could blend the total development rents to 60% AMI, we would have success. And you can see the rents there where it says contract rents. The rents on those 2-bedroom units would be $890, $1,150, and $1,300. There's only 2 at $1,300 that are 60% AMI, and 3 at $1,150. That's probably the max rents that we can get. In all honesty, we have 2 units in the city of Frankfurt that are approximately $1,350 a month, and they're holding strong. So I wouldn't want to go above that. Just knowing what the applicants bring in with their income, we try to stay within 30% of their gross income to support the rent. Here is the net operating income and the expenses attributable to it. There is a 4% pilot that Weldon Township gave us, so that was very positive. And next slide shows right now I have a gap of about $2,049,000. That I'm going to go through a cycle of my neighborhood application again and to the Federal Home Loan Bank for an AHP grant. I think we can make this work. I think we can make it happen if that was put through. So that's the end of that.
That's the gap for the 8 units or the project
That's
as a whole?
that's the total gap
The
for the 8
total gap.
units,
For
right?
the 8 units.
Right. If it were 12 units, the gap was about almost 3 million. So this is brought it down. I know that's what people don't realize with affordable housing. You don't have the revenue to support the debt. So your debt can only take about 1/3 of the cost of the whole development. You have to raise 2/3 of the total cost of the development. It's an uphill battle. And putting that $750,000 or $800,000 for a water facility, it's almost outside of the norm. So 3 million, 3.5 million, 4 million, where is this going to stop, right? So scale it down. If this approach that Katie brought to my attention with CDBG funds comes through, it could be a real game changer for us. And the ask could be 300,000 for maybe some help with the infrastructure, coupled with the idea that in our application, we would demonstrate that we're helping the county's EMS, or maybe potentially putting in a facility for the housing of the ambulance itself. I've learned a little bit about the ambulances. There's BL and AL.
Yeah.
And so this would be an AL facility,
ALS,
correct?
yeah.
ALS if it were successful. So I think, it's not just the money part of it. It's the idea that the county is saying, we'd like to partner with you and put together an application to go for some of these infrastructure dollars. And that's really what they are. It's for infrastructure. And we need, my cost for the road to be put in and the septic and the wells, that's approximately $350,000. So we could structure our application maybe for infrastructure not to exceed 350 or 400,000, demonstrating that this would benefit the community by putting in housing for the EMS and for the ambulance itself. There's a few other documents in there, and you can always go on the MSHDA website and go to CDBG, that one right there. They do have some answers and questions that were posed throughout the whole rollout of this.
And while we're pulling that up, just for everybody's benefit, you did talk to Tom King on this also.
Mhm.
Yes, I did. Tom filled me in on the size of the facility that they would need to house the ambulance. He went into quite a bit of detail, but we basically took that plan that he's told us and plotted it on the site plan. And that site plan that you have does show, it's kind of difficult to see, but towards the entrance, way up at the top, there is a large box set out, and it's really hard to read. I almost cannot read it, but it's a 24 by 32 garage, and it would be attached to the townhome unit, so we could actually have a doorway from the living space of that townhome unit right into that garage. So they would be attached essentially. We'd have to, we are, you know, if this moves forward, we'd talk to the Weldon Township zoning administrator and make sure that the use is still in keeping with what we were approved for. And if we have to do an amendment, we would probably ask for an amendment. And I don't see a problem with that, but we'd have to explore that.
So our arrangement would be as tenants?
Excuse me?
The county would be a tenant of the project?
That's the way I'd structure it. We're going to build the housing anyway. The only additional part to that would be we would be building a facility for the garage. And it could start out, and I talked to Tom about this, it could start out being a gravel or even a paved just pad outside the unit, until which point we said, okay, now we want to build the structure. And that way it could go away. It could cease to exist, or it could continue.
I think, you'd almost have to have a garage, or you'd have to have ambulance plugged in because they have stuff under that cannot freeze.
True. And that was brought up when I talked to Tom about having power and an insulated unit, and room for them to pull out the gear and store it. I'd be an advocate for doing that. And we could write the grant, Katie and I, for your approval to see if maybe there would be money in there specifically for that building. Not just maybe an infrastructure ask, but for that building. What it does is it enhances the request to all of the other grant providers, MISTA, Federal Home Loan Bank, you know, to have something that makes the project stand out. Otherwise, it's just a project in a rural area that really, okay, there might be some market demand, but this is really something to bite onto and to say, hey, we can help the community more than just with housing.
So this is just one of those things that, I don't know, it's one of those really creative approaches that it just popped up. And so that was why we wanted to start this conversation and really hear from the Board of Commissioners. Is there even interest in this sort of long-term planning as we think about the future of Benzie EMS services? Or is it a different service that's out there? I don't know, but it was just part of that creative thinking as to how do we make this work? How do we grow into the future? How do we provide the service in the best way to the community, including, you know, that part of the community and others? And so that's the whole premise of today is we want to hear from you. Does this even make sense to even consider? I mean, this is kind of like the whole animal, you know, regional animal control. Let's have a few conversations and see if it's even feasible to continue these conversations. And that's what we're after today.
John, why don't you describe the timelines, when the letter of intent has to be submitted, and what happens after that if we get invited to apply?
Good question. So the letter of intent, potential to submit was started on February 4th. And the close of that letter of intent is on April 4th. March. And so then end of April is when the full application is due. So we would have a little over a month to turn in the application and to work on it for your approval, but we would have between now and March 4th to submit the letter of intent. And that's really what I'm asking today, is that we submit the letter of intent. If we submit the letter of intent, then that gets them to review and consider whether or not they want us to move forward to the second stage, which is then the full application. Last year, we applied at this time through Carrie Aldrich at the township level in Weldon, and we did not get asked for a second application. We were not asked to provide one. So it was kind of disappointing. But, you know, this project's probably going to take 2 years to get funded, and that's looking like the path that we're on.
So the letter of intent needs to be in no later than March 4th,
March 4th,
and that's non-binding.
correct?
If we were to get invited to complete an application, what I just heard you say is you had 30 days for the preliminary app. And then they'll say, encourage you to move forward, you get 120 days after that.
Right.
To give a full application.
That's right.
So 30 days seems like, wow, that's really operating quickly, but really it's,
At this
you've
point, it's
got 3-4 months.
correct. Yeah, this preliminary ask is just for the letter of intent to even get invited to apply. That's the way their process works.
And you applied last year,
We did. We
but
did.
we're not invited.
No, we weren't.
And that's why you're here today, because this, for lack of a better term, has more meat to it.
I think it has some interest. I think it makes more sense now. And we will also be applying to the Federal Home Loan Bank. Remember that $1 million ask that we had? We'll reapply for that again. And sometimes having that reapplication and the prospect of this would make the Federal Home Loan Bank say, yes, we're gonna donate $1 million to this project. And that is a grant, straight grant with no payback.
And Ron did ask you a question. I want to make sure we get a clear answer. Of the 8 units, one of them would be available for EMS personnel. Who would be the tenant? Who would sign the lease, the county or the employee of EMS?
I would leave that up to you.
Okay,
I would leave that up to you. That semantics would be, and it wouldn't have to be just 1 unit. If you needed 2 units, we could set 2 units aside. As long as the income met the restrictions that we're underwriting the project to, no more than 70% AMI. If we got information that said their income is closer to 80% AMI, well, then we would rewrite the pro forma. Maybe we'd have some units that are a little bit lower AMI to afford to put in the 80% or 100% AMI. As long as we meet that median 60% AMI, I think we can fill the units.
and that could be helpful in attracting staffing for EMS.
Sure. Sure. Attract staffing for EMS. It could be for teachers. It could be for the businesses in Copemish. That was the main emphasis originally, not only Crystal Mountain, but for the businesses in Copemish. And I know CBS Solar is growing. And I know when I walked through and talked to the gentleman that owns it, he said that they are struggling to find places for their people to live. And a lot of them are living in poor conditions. They're surviving in a trailer or something that's not healthy, but we draw from that pool.
You and I have had conversations at length about what the real demand is. You know how I feel about 8 units versus more. I don't want to muddle up the conversation, but if you wanted to do 16 units, couldn't you just put a separate well and septic down?
Well, we have all the septic system can be done at any time from 8 units to 32 units.
Okay.
Problem is the water. Once we go beyond 8 units, we'd have to put in a water facility. And I think where you're going with this is, why can't we do 8 units on a well and another 8 units on a well and another 8 units on a well? We would have to sell off portions of the project because a private type 3 well serving 8 units has to be one ownership. So one entity can only own it. Now, maybe I could sell a portion to another land trust or sell a portion to another private developer, and we carve up that, we'd have to do a site condominium. I mean, realizing this was approved 32 units with one entity for Homestretch, I could bring in partners, but I think we'd still have a problem with the type 3 well. And the health department would say, okay, we see what you're doing here. You guys are trying to do an end run around a private well in a facility. We're not going to buy it.
Yeah, I mean, you're pulling from the same water base. I get that, but you're using a different wellhead for it. I'm not going to push that conversation any further here today. But what you're looking at from us is, would we have an interest in submitting a letter of intent, which would suggest we'd have some level of partnership with you on this project that would house an EMS station and staff, and house staff too.
Correct.
So asked that police be to staff or to EMS. If it's an EMS station, the staff's gonna be different.
Exactly. It's
But it
gotta
had
be
to be
Benzie County.
Confuses me about being 70% AMI.
Right.
As far
It'd have
as,
to be, Benzie EMS would have to
Be the tenant.
be the tenant. Because it's not gonna be the same people in there. In the staff.
and could an
rotates.
entity like that qualify?
Right, because Benzie, I mean, it's two people working 2 to 3 days a week and they're shifting. I mean, it's different. So it could not be a staff person because they're working 24-hour shifts. I'm not gonna have my partner staying overnight with my wife and kids. Like doesn't make sense. And so Benzie County would have to be the tenant.
Well, these are the kinds of things that we'd need to explore.
Exactly.
But again, the letter of intent doesn't obligate us to anything. It just says we're willing to have conversation.
Correct.
And we have long talked about wanting to be the solution when possible for housing in Benzie County. And this is part of how we can participate.
Again,
And it would benefit the year and a half that we went through to get this approved. I mean, the first hurdle was to get, the planned unit development approved. And Gary, you were helpful with that and,
Took a while, didn't it?
so I know Tom had other commitments this afternoon, but you said you have had conversations with him.
Mhm.
He seems supportive of these initial talks.
he was excited about it, actually. He was enthusiastic, and I don't know if it's because he's coming off a 3-month or 3-week vacation, but he received my call really well, and I don't see why we couldn't meet the requirements that he gave me.
He and I spoke again this morning and he still is as enthusiastic about it.
Okay.
So looking at a map of the location. I think I know the answer, but I have to ask the question. It's at the very end of a runway.
Correct.
Is that a problem? Already been.
MDOT Aviation approved it.
Okay, I know that's runways only for single prop, small planes, so. That issues.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No, it's a good question.
Yep.
And would anybody want to live at the end of a runway?
well, those planes aren't too bad.
No.
Single prop, small planes, they're not crazy. It's when you get in the jets and stuff, they're the real loud ones.
Correct.
So do you have an idea off the top of your head how you would reconcile the issue of Benzie EMS having to be the tenant when you need certain criteria to meet to put folks into these units? How do we solve that
Hmm.
issue? Do you have an idea on the front end, or is that something we need to explore further as well?
Yeah, well, I think any tenant that we put in, we have to verify their income. And we have to certify what their income is so that we're meeting the criteria that we put forward in our application to get the grant money. I would need to get a dive into what those salaries are and to
So
make,
you're missing the point.
Benzie County would be the tenant, not the staff.
still, you'd be housing people that are employed with income that we'd have to certify,
Just for like a day at a time.
They would be rotating.
right? But they have incomes themselves, don't
Right.
they?
Yes.
So it would be their individual incomes that would need to qualify.
I mean,
No.
Think that they were working up at the jail for 24 hours at a time.
right.
I mean, they have a home somewhere else.
Oh, this is not their primary.
This is
No,
not,
right.
yeah,
They
exactly.
live somewhere
Yeah.
else. You're coming into work.
To work,
Gotcha.
to do their shift.
Gotcha,
They're 24-hour shifts.
gotcha.
You know, any given week, you're gonna have up to 7, 8 different people there.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. I didn't know that.
So, you have this unit that's dedicated to Benzie EMS. It's a place where they go to work.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Do they get, obviously you pay them? right?
Yes.
No, they work for
No.
free.
They're like me, right? Yeah, no, I mean, I think that we would probably try to identify what,
But going through this process,
mhm,
people who give these grants, you can say, yeah, we're gonna have 7 units
Mhm.
dedicated for,
the general
AMI,
public,
but-
yeah.
but we're gonna have one dedicated for governmental, for EMS, for emergency response.
Right. I would I would make some inquiries and see how would you categorize that? Maybe we would just set it at a market rate. Fair housing rents, fair market rents for one unit, and then the rest of them would be adjusted so that the overall blend was still within that 60% criteria that the grant writers want us to be at. So that's a good point. We could maybe do it as a market rate. Is that,
Did you have a question?
I have a question. Don't we have an EMS station in Thompsonville?
Thompsonville's not Benzie County. We're talking about Benzie County EMS.
That's
Thompson-
Thompsonville.
Thompsonville has their own
That's different
volunteer.
between advanced life support, which is paramedics, versus basic life support, which are EMTs.
Okay, but I thought we had
It's
one
at the,
up
it's at,
there.
it's behind Jody's Bar there at the base of 31 and 669. That's the unit that commonly is referred to as the Thompsonville Highway Unit. But it's actually right just off 31 and 669 behind Jody's Bar there.
Okay,
That's where it's actually located.
115, you mean?
Oh, what? I don't know. No,
Well, you know,
down
US
here.
31 and Thompsonville
it's
60.
Thompsonville Highway.
Joe, you're talking about,
Yeah. So it's commonly referred to as the Thompsonville because it's on Thompsonville Highway per se. And so it's actually like right outside of Honor.
okay, thank you. That helps clarify that. For me. Thank you.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, I'm comfortable that you have a better understanding of like what the housing situation will be, because that is an issue that we need to approach a little
Resolve.
bit differently.
Mhm.
And
Maybe adding a Benz EMS unit be part of a second phase, not for the first phase.
could be. My hope is to get one phase started. Make some kind of incremental change.
I mean, if it helps the process by having an EMS unit there, by all means.
Right.
But if it hinders the process,
right.
maybe we
Right.
push it down the road.
Yeah, I see it as, I mean, I'm floored by the idea that it could happen. It makes the project stand out, whether it's phase one or phase two. It's
Mhm.
something we can hang our hat on.
Yep.
Yeah,
this allows them to use those grant monies for infrastructure build out. And I don't want to be overly optimistic, John, but they like these partnerships,
right.
which would strengthen the application.
Right.
With respect to how do we satisfy MISTA and the project's needs for staffing issues, that's part of what we can be exploring if we even get invited to apply.
Mhm.
Right. Right. This is just getting our foot in the door, even apply at this point. And make discoveries like you came up with, I think is important. We have addressed those ahead of time.
So what is the will of the board?
I'd like to move this for action at our next meeting. And the action doesn't obligate us to anything, right? It's just,
Nope.
it's non-binding.
Binding.
It essentially says that we're open to the conversation to explore this idea.
We're authorizing Katie to sign letter of intent.
Right.
Need to act on it at the next meeting, or is it
Yes.
too far down the road?
Is there anybody opposed? Forward.
And for what it's worth, I've made several calls. I can get letters of support pretty quickly. As soon as I told them, the group that, and I don't mean to be presumptuous here, folks, but timelines are short. As soon as we would take action, let's assume it was approved to move forward. I've got 4 or 5 different entities that are ready to put in letters of support.
Which is a huge benefit to our letter of intent, and then those can be used for the application itself.
Just to have the question asked and answered, EMS has been in a situation before where it was proposed being a tenant in a different facility. And they didn't, they decided not to go that route. Is there a reason that this, because it is in conjunction with a housing effort, does this make it more appealing, or is there, what changes this situation to one more desirable than the one they decided not to move forward with?
I can offer up a little bit of insight as to why they decided not to. This is my recollection, because I was kind of part of those conversations. It was, I believe, the cost that they were asking Benz EMS to pay. They were looking for Benz EMS to cover the construction cost.
That's
And-
helpful.
And quite honestly, fire and EMS, although we get along very well in the scenes, I don't know how well they'd get along in a building.
Appreciate that.
I'll just add to, you know, from a standpoint of rental versus own, I mean, in my opinion, it makes sense to own. But when we're thinking about the overall picture of Benzie County and what we want to do to support our community, this is a cool idea and it supports many facets of our community. Whereas the other, you know, rental situation, like what Tim said, that was going on, but what was the overall big picture impact to Benzie County as a whole? I don't know. And so thinking about this project, it's a big impact to Benzie County as a whole. So while maybe I personally think you should own versus rent, but if the greater good for Benzie County is to move housing along, and that's one of our, you know, overarching goals to support housing in Benzie County, well, then we should explore this rental opportunity because the overall good outweighs this idea of ownership versus rental. That's my opinion.
I
appreciate that. Thank you.
would also add that the rent on the unit would be more predictable, and we could own where the bus is going to be housed.
Ambulance?
And the ambulance, right? I call them buses, sorry. But we could own that piece of it, correct, John?
I think we could enter into, we file a limited dividend housing association, so it's its own entity. You could buy shares into that entity that we create. So Homestretch would be the owner, and we would sell shares in that ownership structure. That's how, right, preliminary, off the cuff, I would say that would be the way to structure it.
And the unit would be more predictable than what we might have had on a straight commercial lease.
Yeah, our escalation on rents is only maximum 3% annually, and it doesn't typically occur until year 4. So it would be flat for the first 3.5, 4 years.
I don't mean to contradict you, but is it 3 or 5%?
Well, we go 3%, we're allowed to go 5,
Oh, okay.
but we keep it at 3% and trying to keep our tenants under that 5%.
Keep in mind, we're dealing with a non-for-profit here versus a for-profit developer.
Well, I think we have given administration the go-ahead to move forward with the letter of intent to move that to the full board.
Yes, so on the 24th, we'll have the draft letter of intent in the packet for approval. As long as the board approves it, we can sign and get it to John that day, and then John can submit it to the granting agency.
Creative concept. I'm excited to see where it goes.
And I work with Katie to get those letters of support.
That'd be great. And in that flash drive that I gave you, you could distribute the,
Okay,
You
I'll
know,
do that.
and your letter of intent draft is in there, so
Perfect.
you can kind of play with that. But thank you very much for considering it.
Thanks for
Yeah.
being here, John.
Yep, I appreciate it. Okay.
John, just so I have an idea, how many letters of support would be adequate?
As many as we can get. I mean,
Okay.
we want to flood.
Looking at a half a dozen.
Think it's
Half a
off
dozen
my
would
head.
work.
Okay. all right.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Thank you very much.
Very good. That moves us along to our next topic, which is discussion regarding Juneteenth.
Yes, so at the organizational meeting at the beginning of January, we briefly talked about Juneteenth. And so the consensus at that time was to push it to the February study session to have additional conversation related to Juneteenth. In your packet is a memo that was provided that kind of just goes over some things related and surrounding Juneteenth with the state and federal requirement, overhead versus output, personnel and recruitment risk, cultural declaration, etc. So really, and as you know, this is a discussion body at the study session. And so we're here to discuss Juneteenth. I did ask the department heads at a department head meeting as requested by the Board of Commissioners about, you know, what they saw for that day, whether it was off or not. And the general consensus of the group was to have it off to align with the court system and to align with other agencies that we work with that are outside of the county for that day. More and more folks are closing that day, which limits certain operations. Tammy's office is limited in the sense that the state court administrator's office says no court work, no filings, nothing. No scanning of court documents, technically, no opening of mail that may be court related. It's an interesting order that was put out by the state court administrator's office. And so really that the court side of the building is closed. They don't come to work that day. That end of the building is dark. And then the different departments within this building that deal directly with the courts, their hands are pretty limited on those days specifically. And then as we've moved into the future on this and other agencies are closed on certain circumstances, that's also limiting other department operations as well, as this becomes a more prevalent holiday for the federal and the state level folks. So that's where I'll start, and I'll leave it to this board to discuss.
So we're lining the, our holidays to coincide with the court holidays is what
Yes.
so we would be adding one more holiday to our, and not taking one away.
Well, that's up to this board.
You've got 12 on there now.
I'm saying that's what the proposal is, or what is being
One day
suggested.
a month. Times 12 on this one. Are the banks closed that day? Schools closed that day?
Close at summertime.
Yeah, it's summer. this
Summer,
week.
excuse me.
Yeah, our memo says that all banks are closed. Our local bank, we have one local bank that is not closed.
Yeah, I
Which is
didn't think every
interesting.
bank-
And I confirmed that.
Federal Reserve is closed that day. What?
The
The Federal
Federal
Reserve is closed and typically the banks, well, listen to what I'm saying to you. You'll get educated now.
Okay, we'll work on it.
So typically financial institutions will close because they have nowhere to process their transactions. I was surprised to learn that state savings, this state savings, right?
It is.
That's open.
Apparently Siri heard that.
We need to find another.
We have a list of our holidays.
It's
Yes.
actually in the personnel policy from earlier, or the
Yeah.
PTO policy from earlier.
It's in the board bracket for now.
I'll read those off.
Yeah, but it's gonna,
New Year's Day, Memorial Day, Veterans Day, Christmas Eve Day, Martin Luther King Day, Independence Day, Thanksgiving Day, Christmas Day, President's Day, Labor Day, the day after Thanksgiving, and day before New Year.
that's,
So that's
the-
New Year's Eve.
that's a different one. According to the Michigan court holidays, day after Thanksgiving is not on this list.
And they're closed here
I-
and pretty
that's-
much in most
I was trying to
counties.
figure out the difference.
Oh, I got you.
That's the day after Thanksgiving, which according to the wonderful AI that Google uses, the day after Thanksgiving is not a Michigan court holiday.
Yes, and when it comes to the state court administrator's office and the holidays that is published by SCAO, the chief judge can then dictate additional days. And Judge Thompson has said that the day after Thanksgiving will be off. It's also off in Manistee, which is his other county. And then I'm not aware of a court that's open the day after Thanksgiving. We did reach out to the neighboring counties too, in Grand Traverse, Manistee, Wexford. They've also now added that as an additional holiday.
It was interesting to me how limited the information was online regarding our counties in Michigan, because I did try to find a list of who, even a narrow for 2025, which counties consider Juneteenth a paid holiday, and it would not
Yeah. So-
respond. I mean, barring, and I even went and I bailed on it, but I was picking counties around us, Mason, Osceola, Kalkaska, blah, blah, blah. And you literally have to go to their websites, try and find their policy book, to go
Yeah.
to the page where their holidays are. And I threw in the towel after that. It's not easy to find that information. We were provided several that do give Juneteenth off as a paid holiday.
Yeah, so I'll just go into a little more detail because it's a pretty fluid thing. It's brand new, really. I think this was only the second year that the courts were closed. Is it third now?
It's
Okay.
22.
So the administrators did a poll in the listserv because everyone's trying to figure out what to kind of do going forward. Because initially when this was put out, it was temporary and it was going to be talked about some more. And so nobody really acted on it because they thought, well, the state's going to continue to talk about this. We're not going to make any changes until we know that it's going to be a permanent. After it happened at the court level, it's become now a permanent thing for the courts. And so now other counties are kind of moving to that direction. And so the administrators, we did a poll. And so let me see if I can tell you. Many. So 23 counties as of our listserv that we did as administrators 2 years ago had already jumped on board. So we haven't done an updated listserv question, so these are 2 years old.
Any idea what the consensus is between our local judges?
I actually asked Judge Thompson if he was going to change it, because there was some verbiage, in the state court administrator's office when they put this out that said the chief judge could change, essentially, make an exception. And when I spoke with him, he had no intention of creating any sort of exception for his courts. So he would continue to have it off for his courts. He wouldn't be creating an exception to not be off.
I did a little bit more research on it and I guess nobody's really, I'm gonna go ahead and share with you my thoughts on it. I do think that there are things at our clerk's office, many tasks they do beyond what they do with the courts. There are still services that can be provided to our community, the people that we serve. I did reach out to the entities that I represent, 2 villages and a township, and I was actually at a meeting for one of my villages when honoring this as or adding this as a paid holiday was addressed, and they declined to do so. Neither of the villages or the township in the area that I represent offer this as paid holiday for their hourly salary people. I called some bigger employers in our community who do not, their folks come to work. Our small business comes to work. And I did find it kind of moving. And as I was looking, I found the order from the state Supreme Court, and there was a dissenting view, which I found compelling. And I'm just going to read it if that's all right. It says, the Michigan court system, and this is, I'm sorry, Justice Zara, who was dissenting in the action that the court took. The Michigan court system currently observes 12 paid holidays. This is far more than observed by the private sector. I believe as servants of the people, we owe it to them to work diligently and regularly to provide good public service. Accordingly, I would not add an additional day off at the taxpayer's expense. Juneteenth has been a ceremonial holiday in Michigan to be celebrated on the 3rd Saturday of June each year. I would continue to follow this observance, but since it is the will of the court to make it a paid holiday, I would cease to recognize one of the other holidays typically not observed by the private sector, such as the Friday after Thanksgiving. For these reasons, I dissent. I share that view. And I align myself with the small business in the community who go to work that day. And so that's my position.
The other question I got, when we give a holiday, pay overtime to the sheriff's department, we pay overtime to others.
If it's not in their contract, they don't get
If they
overtime for
work that
those
day,
days.
they get paid.
Not if it's in their contract, it's not in their contract.
It will be their next contract, though.
Well, if we
Could
do
be in
what we're
4
doing right
years.
now, we're headed that way, and it's just me, an added expense.
I would argue that they have more PTO than everybody in this building, most of them. Which is a benefit of their contract.
I don't know, there's a cost to the county, cost to the taxpayers, and I
And
think-
there definitely
I
is.
think we
And
need to
we've,
focus on that.
yes, and I think we've been very clear that we want to be a good employer in the community, and we've taken great strides to do that. And when I hear that other communities, well, they're giving this paid off, and it occurs to me, okay, you can make that statement, but I want a bigger picture. what is your fiscal outlook? You know, are these people sitting on a general operating fund that's much larger than ours? Do they pay 100% of health benefit to their employees? What are the other benefits that they provide? I mean, it's just not apples and apples. Just because they do it doesn't make them a better caretaker of their employees. It's, you have to look at the picture in a more holistic way, I believe, than just saying, you know, 4 of these counties do this, so we should be doing it too. There's a bigger picture there.
If I may,
Of course.
I see it a little bit differently. I don't know, as I used to work for a company and we had actually a generous paid holiday schedule. And then I guess the company was kind of federalized. And so they came in and they squished us down, and that didn't feel good. So just from that employee perspective, I don't know. It's nice to have a day off. But anyway, the other point is that, you know, we are the county and we are kind of the example. And so if we say that, yes, this holiday does deserve to be off, and, you know, we think that's important, you know, we're kind of the leaders in the area. And it is a cultural declaration. It does help with personnel and recruitment. Like I said, you know, when we had all those paid time off holidays, it felt really good because we normally got them off. It wasn't, but I understand the sheriff's office is a little different. I understand that. But that was one of the great things about that, is then, you know, those were actually days that we could have off, but I know the county is a little bit different with some of the entities, but that would be my thing on that. And yeah, I know our first discussion was, you know, it's going to cost so much, you know, for us to kind of shutter the building. And I don't know. I think in here you kind of made that kind of a wash, that really isn't an argument. And I would agree with that. I support making Juneteenth the holiday. We are the county. We are the example. We show that this is an important holiday. Yeah, I think it's a yes, my opinion.
The other thing that I'll add in too is staff safety in some instances. Yes, Tammy has really nice bulletproof glass, bullet resistant glass, but she has met with some pretty ornery folks on that day as well, because she has to refuse any sort of court filing that day, or court paperwork in general. She's not even supposed to touch it. And so that is the other issue too, is when you have these unruly folks coming into the building, that's part of the other driving behind this as well.
The reason we have the bailiffs in this building, or am I missing something? Right.
And then in rebuttal to the townships and villages, humbly, they don't work 5 days a week, most of them. So do they even get paid? Do they even get paid days off? There's a lot of them?
Yes, they
Okay.
do. And these were for the people who do, the DPW guys who are in there
Okay,
every day.
I wasn't sure.
I'm, the will of the board. There are a couple people we haven't heard from. Would you like to weigh in?
My recommendation would be, we're not taking action today anyway.
Hmm.
The whole purpose of a study session is hear points and counterpoints. That's what we've heard. And, you know, at the next meeting, we can put it back on the agenda and make the decision. I'll tell you what carries a lot of weight for me is, even in the private sector, it's about my responsibilities of being available in service levels to my customer. If there was, I've not said this before, but I guess it's a good time to say it now. I've always been surprised we take the Friday after Thanksgiving off. But, you know, I mean, that was a decision made before, long before. So
We swap them.
what's that?
Maybe we swap them.
I just received information that day after Thanksgiving is actually a court holiday and that your AI is
If
not correct.
I said it.
Yeah, it is a court holiday.
That's why I disclose where I got the information from.
Right. You can't trust AI.
No. Cannot. But then if we do that, we're just popping one problem with another, with the courts being closed.
See, for me, it's less of a financial decision and it's more about customer service levels. I know that this doesn't necessarily apply here, but when I came and was running Honor Bank, I did away with some holidays that occurred on Monday because I had customers that they were working, they needed access. I don't know what the demand is on that date for here. And I don't want to say much about the holiday because that's, those are personal issues, but again, it's about service levels. But I'd like to have the time between now and the next meeting. I appreciate the research you've done. I've not asked those kind of questions. I'd be less than honest if I didn't tell you that what you read to us was pretty compelling. Doggone you anyway.
Did anyone else want to weigh in? Okay, not hearing anyone. Is it the will of the board that this topic moves forward for a vote, or do we consider it discussed?
I just soon sit on it for a week or two or whatever I was recommending.
The idea was to put it on an agenda. Yeah,
The next meeting.
the next meeting.
To have conversation. One more conversation.
Okay, sounds like we will be revisiting.
On the 24th? On the 24th?
On the 24th, everyone? Yes. Yes. All right. And then our final discussion this afternoon is regarding financial forecasting outlook and informational support for the August ballot. It's our Headley conversation. We were provided with a really great informational packet. I hope everybody took the time to read it because when I was talking about how do we get our information out to the folks to do our job as commissioners, a guide, that's what you created. It was very good. Thank you.
I
So
did miss the ballot language though in there. Like, I feel like that was an important element that I thought about this morning. Like, I didn't even put the actual ballot language in it though. So
So
I'll change it. I'll amend it.
I've asked Katie to be prepared for this. Katie, if you would explain to us your assumptions. And as I reviewed this, I couldn't help but think back about that third-party analysis that we did,
Mhm.
that everybody said, oh, that never happened, so they were poorly forecasting.
Yes.
Well, that's because we had COVID
Right.
and a bunch of money came in.
Correct.
Because if you take that forecast they gave us with the forecast that you've suggested,
Mhm.
it tells the same story.
Yes, it does. And so before I was here, you guys had a municipal financial forecast done. And that gave a very grave outlook that should have happened a couple of years ago. But then COVID happened and the world was swimming in money and we reaped that benefit as well. And we were able to take those dollars and really have a huge impact in Benzie County, over $16 million in impact into our community. So great things, but all that did was extend out that grave future because it just pushed out the fact that Benzie County cannot sustain the services as they are today on a millage that continues to roll back. I know that the argument is that, well, you still get more money every year. However, you're not keeping up though with the cost of doing business and with the demand, because while you're getting a small increase, the increase definitely is less than what the market is weighing. And so you're not meeting that demand. So you constantly are trickling backwards. And so if you look at the really long spreadsheet that I provided, and sorry, it's small, you can see though that as we're moving into 27 and 28 and 29, you're showing that our revenues are not meeting the expenditures. And that is just everyday business as it is today, using, a 3 to 5% increase. So we already know with our union contracts, we've agreed to 3% increase for wages. So wages are pretty well baked for the next couple of years. We kind of know where those are going to be. But then the rest of the services, it could be more like a 5% increase in the cost of doing business. And so you see here that, and I should start over with this. This is if we were to go for a renewal and the renewal passed. We are still going to be in this situation where our revenues are not meeting our expenditures. That's a renewal. But to be very, very clear, you dropped the indefinite a couple of years ago. And if this fails at the ballot box in August and or November, there is no levy. That general operating revenue millage is gone. So this is if we were to seek a renewal and the renewal were to pass, it still shows our revenues are not meeting our expenditures. But it should be very, very clear that if it does not pass this year at a renewal or even an increase, there's no money. Okay, our general fund is about $9.5 million. And of that, just over $6 million is taxes. So that would be up to this board to decide what they're going to cut. Because the revenue that's going to be there, that's outside of those tax obligations, is only around $4 million. So you have to decide what you're going to spend that $4 million on, and it's going to be your statutory required services. It's going to be your clerk, your treasurer, it's going to be the court, it's going to be the register of deeds, it's going to be a sheriff, but that doesn't mean the rest of the sheriff's office. It's going to be a sheriff and limited staff. It's going, animal control will not be funded. So it's very important for the community to understand that is we are then only required to provide those minimum statutory obligations. And if we don't have the revenue, then that's what we will have to provide, period. So this spreadsheet demonstrates a straight renewal, and it shows that within 2 years, we're already going to not see the revenues to meet the expenditures.
Katie, just to interrupt you for a moment, I think we'd all be better served if we went to the last page of the analysis and focused on the last 4 columns.
Yep, page 23 of the 32-page packet online is the last few lines of the general fund, and you'll see it in red parentheses where the revenues are not meeting the expenditures. And so you're pulling from the fund balance at that point.
You're talking next fiscal year.
Already.
We're already in the negative, what was it?
What page, Art? I'm sorry. Are we on?
Page 23 of the 32-page packet.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, keep in mind, we pulled from surplus to balance the budget this year.
We did.
Yeah, so 2027, we're also have to pull from the fund balance, you know, 1,050,000.
That's what the projections would be. And that's just the cost of doing business with a modest increase of 3 to 5% on the expenditures, which seems to be a trend. Now, sometimes they're going up a lot more. You all hear the stories about inflation, and some years it's 8, 9, 10%. Other years it's 2%. So that's just kind of picking a mean inflationary number and plugging that in for the expenditures.
Katie, let me back up with you for a moment. So what did you use? 3% on
Wages,
wages?
5% on everything else.
Okay, but as an example, health insurance, we've been lucky if we could keep it at 5%,
I know.
which is a big number for us.
Yep,
So that's probably already understated.
it is understated.
All right. And utilities, quite frankly, I've seen utilities going up 6 to 10%. So that may be understated also.
Especially in this unique situation we're in the village of Beulah and their water sewer rates. We already know that that's going to be wildly different than what inflation is. So this right here is, you know, it could be a lot worse.
It's important we understand your assumptions. And in my opinion, 5% is pretty modest. But I realize line item by line item is difficult to anticipate.
Right. Health insurance would probably be more, you know, even the MERS liability, right? I'm guesstimating on that, but that is so dependent upon the market. Those have huge swings some years when they factor in their fancy smoothing effect. And so, you know, that's the other thing too, is that's not necessarily 5% either. Either way though, it does not look good from a number standpoint, even after next year. And that's with a renewal period.
And as we continue to use our surplus to balance the budget, and we have a policy of 25%, at what point are we outside of our policy?
So, oh shoot, hold on, I went too far. By fiscal year 29-30, we have depleted our fund balance. According to these assumptions, we've depleted it.
So blowing out your 25%, I believe it happens in 2027 or 2028. So
Yeah.
2 years from now.
Yeah, the 28-29 fiscal year, it's going to all but deplete it, and then every penny of that would be fully depleted as we budget for the next year.
And your auditors anticipate a minimum of 15%.
That is the general
Yeah.
recommended, yeah. So already by 27-28, we're gonna be breaking down into that 15%, and then within 2 years after that, we're at 0.
By the way, the implications also is if we have to borrow money or bond, our bond rating goes down,
Correct.
which means that money becomes more expensive for us also.
Yes. Any other questions on this spreadsheet? Other than the bleak outlook of it?
Yeah, that's everybody happy. My question is, and I think you tried to answer it, worst case scenario, if it doesn't pass, does that mean we don't collect what we're collecting now?
So the levy that is currently in place is through the 2026 levy. So the last collection of the general operating millage is the 2026 tax year.
It's this year.
So that, yeah, and then after that, there's no collection of the general operating millage. And because of the way you're proposing with the increase, that also means animal control goes away because that collection is over. And then we'd have to discuss how to address the SRO and TNT because those are also expiring as of 26 and 27.
Well, you're assuming that they wouldn't get renewed.
Correct.
Our experience has been those kinds of things
They do.
Yeah.
get renewed, but
Sure, but just stating the facts. There would be no collection in 27 of the general operating period. And don't forget, that's all the townships too. That's not just Benzie County's 6 and some million. That's every township's general operating as well. So whatever that impact is under their budget. And so part of the write-up that I gave you, I did solicit feedback from every township supervisor in Benzie County. I've spoken to almost half of them now. And their general operating dollars support everything from cemeteries to parks, to fire protection across the board. There's a lot of different things that their general funds are supporting. And so it's the gamut of any of those things that would be impacted to the whole community if that levy was not there.
and we talk as if it was a bad thing to put this back on the ballot with some frequency. Over 90% of the counties in the state have theirs renewed at some frequency between 2 and 10 years. Ross Commons, as an example, last year, their increase was defeated. I think when the community realized what they did, it was back in the ballot and got approved.
It did. Yeah, when theirs was defeated, they went right to publicly cutting departments
Right.
immediately and made sure the news was aware of it. That they were cutting planning and they were cutting these departments because the money was gone and we're not statutorily obligated to provide those services.
That's why the educational component to this is so important to get out ahead of it. Because I'm not sure they did that at Ross Commons.
I don't
And
know.
quite frankly, it's important that we're speaking with one voice.
So I tried to I tried to explain in the write-up kind of what Headley is, what Proposal A did, what it looked like in 1982 when it was initially put together in Benzie County. And then I kind of went into all the different things that could be affected with a change. And then at the end, I tried to spell out kind of how you figure it out on your own, right? And what the impact looks like for the different individual townships, because, you know, it's different for all of you. And that'll be the hard part of this education too, is the community needs to understand that everybody's impact is very different because it's different by township and then obviously different by the taxable value of your home. And so that's why I put all those individual numbers in there so that when whatever jurisdiction you're in, you can focus on that jurisdiction and the impact for them is different than for their neighbors.
And on one of these pages, I don't have mine, I don't have the number on it, but it looks like our request would affect each household on average of about $16 a year. Is that right?
That would be on a home with a taxable value of 200,000.
Right.
So, and it's hard to figure out the average taxable value of a home in Benzie County because we really are the full spectrum of taxable valued homes in Benzie County. So it's really hard to figure out a great average. And the other thing you have to keep in mind is your taxable value is capped if you've lived in your house for 112 years. And so a house that maybe is worth $2 million isn't going to have a taxable value of anywhere near that because it's, you know, been in the same family for so long. So that's why I tried to do the math so that folks could figure it out on their own by looking at their tax bill, looking specifically at their taxable value and working on doing that math so that they saw the impact on their individual self. But on an average $200,000 taxable valued home, it's about $15.85 annually or 0.043 cents a day.
That's just for the county, is that all
That's the
three?
county.
Because
It'd have to be a lot more
This always
math if I
bothers
did all
me.
the others.
we're taxed on a gain that we can't realize. Value of your house might be $400,000 or whatever, and you're taxed on that amount. And until you sell, you never gain that. So that's another one of those things that's sticky to me. I would like to, I see the increases for the townships that
Yep.
you're possible increases. Depends on the township too, what they levy.
Well,
Correct?
Yeah, that's the other thing
Because
is,
that jump is quite a bit for some of them. I think Blaine right now is at 0.5 and 1.2 is quite a jump for them.
yep, and I also said that as well. Townships in Benzie County are not required to levy the maximum allowable. So it's up to those respective boards to only levy what is necessary.
It depends on their fund balances. You have townships, and I'll get in trouble for this. You got townships that have extremely excessive fund balances,
Right.
and they're not gonna go to the lower amount. They will go to the max. Cause that's just the way they do things.
And they
It's gonna be
shouldn't.
a tough sell.
They shouldn't. I mean, you can't assume
Well,
they
I know
will.
They shouldn't, but
I
they do.
mean, well, and this is where we have to be vocal as taxpayers and say, just because you can doesn't mean you should. I mean, the townships are getting a leeway that they don't have to take advantage of. If there is a need and they can defend that need, then it's the exact same position that we're in. I feel like we're making a defendable case about why we're asking for what we're asking for, and they need to be responsible about doing the same thing and not just levying because they can. And people are gonna be watching, paying attention. I mean,
Absolutely.
I hope so.
I'm sure they will when it comes to pocketbook issues. People are watching.
Gary, you make a fair comment about the fact that you have to pay on a gain that you've not realized.
Right.
I mean, there's no way to argue that because I agree with exactly what you're saying. But there's a cost to run your government. And we are very modest about how we run our government. I would feel completely different about this if I thought there was a lot of fat in our budget. So yes, it is true that you're paying additional money or equity that you've not got in your, put into your own pocketbook, but you want the government to operate, don't you? And our job is to let them know that this is what the real cost of doing business is. You want us to respond to that?
Want me to respond to that?
I do. It's important to me.
Cause you got people that are paying the taxes, that are living on incomes that don't fluctuate to this maximum all the time. Those costs affect how they live and what they purchase and what they do. Property tax to me is one of the worst things that we can possibly do to the taxpayers in any area. Well, property is the main thing this country was based on. I don't like taking property. I don't like foreclosures. I don't like anything that goes that way. But when you get to a point that you got, oh, we need more money, we need more money. Well, you see it all the time. Do we really need more money? And my concern is, I'm gonna look out for the people that are paying the taxes and voted for me. And I will be happy to give out the information you give me. But push comes to shove, ask my opinion, probably don't want to hear it. But anyway, that's just, I ran on the fact that I was not gonna ask the taxpayers to increase taxes. And I'm gonna abide by that stipulation. It may cost me in the future.
What programs would you cut out? Is there anything you can think of top of mind that you would discontinue offering if we weren't getting an increase and you knew that we had to cut back?
Well, there's a couple of things that we paid extra for, the clerk's office, and we paid extra for through Register of Deeds. We don't need to be selling whatever you want to call them, you know what I'm talking about.
Passports.
Passports. We
Those-
don't need to be dealing
Those
with
fund
that.
themselves, though, we get a kickback on those, and that money that is there pay out on behalf of those passports, the revenue we get from the revenue, processing of those passports outweighs the expenditure that we give to the staff for processing those passports, though.
Using $1 extra,
Yes, it does. The revenue,
$6,000-7,000.
the revenue
Make
that
that
we,
much.
yes.
You know, just saying, it's one of those things, it's time consumption and takes them away from other jobs. And, yeah, that's where I would start. I
Well-
think we really need to have somebody come and look at, what we're doing and how we're doing it. Is there a way to fix things? I mean, I've never been crazy about time studies, but sometimes they work. That's my opinion, is what it is.
No, I appreciate your voice is powerful though, Gary.
Afraid of that. I don't have any problem going forward and asking. I think we need to take a hard look at ourselves. That's where always point.
Well, I think regardless of this, I can tell you as a commissioner, I feel responsible every budgeting period to take a hard look at all of it.
Mhm.
No, I feel confident, especially with my own work experience, that every year when we're going through the budget, I'm challenging stuff all the time and whether we really need it or we don't. Where we're at today and how we manage the county's finances is light years from where we were at 10 years ago, quite frankly. 10 years ago, they didn't have a capital plan. They didn't have a capital budget. They hadn't done a deep dive on what the county's finances looked like. There's so many things that we're doing better today. I'm not at all reluctant to tell somebody that I think we're doing as good a job as we can. If there's a place to cut, tell me. I'll be glad to look at it. Your example regarding the passports, you know, I don't want to push back too hard on you, but I don't think we're paying overtime to issue passports.
Katie just said no.
So it's really not costing us anything because
Because cost is a stipend. We were paying $1 per employee.
But that
Wow.
scenario is nothing in the big picture. I mean, I understand you had a platform that you ran on, and in a scenario where the 5.29 that was set in 1982 was renewed over the past 40 some years, we wouldn't be in this situation. It's the rollback that
How
caused
many,
it.
yeah.
So if you want to say, I don't want to raise taxes, I don't want to raise taxes, that's okay if you're maintaining, if you're pacing along with the cost of living, but we're rolling back. And I don't see this as much, I see it as an adjusting move. I see it as a remedy to a situation we didn't correct. Or we didn't create,
Right.
but we're taking the time to correct. I don't think you're prepared to tell your neighbors that you're not gonna raise their taxes and 4-H is gone. I'm not gonna raise your taxes and the sheriff's department is down to the sheriff and the undersheriff. Nobody's gonna come when you call. I don't think you're prepared to tell your people animal control's gone, but I didn't raise your taxes. There's a bigger.
That's their choice, not mine.
But you're saying it's a platform you're standing on, and I don't think you're being fair to the bigger picture. Nobody here is going, I want to raise taxes and we want more money from people because I want it, because I want it, because I want it. We're saying there's a situation that happened. There was a fluctuation in the real estate market. We are in our situation because we didn't have the ability to renew. And that's what the communities did. I think after this adjustment, during your term and my term, we'll never have to ask for an increase again. That's my highest hope, is that we can just ask for renewals from that point on. It's been 40 years, it's rolled back. So if we could renew, where would we be right now if we had been, and maybe you ran these numbers, if we were at 5.29% and we reset every 5 years, what would our general operating fund look like if we had had the ability to reset and somebody had handled this 20 years ago, 30 years ago, instead of over 40?
You'd have minimal special millages, I can tell you that. You'd probably just about only have an EMS because that's an enterprise fund and it's a business per se. But your jail would be in your general fund. The special road deputy, the TNT and SRO would be in your general fund. You'd probably still have animal control within your general fund. Those would all be in one department, most likely, if you continued to reset on a timeline versus having the various special millages.
I see our community, I watch what they do when the Benzie bus says we have a need. We asked for this. They said yes. I see it with senior resources. We have a need. We asked for this. We can explain why we're doing what we're doing. To just say we're raising taxes, we're asking for a 0.7 increase. At the end of the day, you know, it's about on the thing that Katie ran, you know, it's a couple lattes a week,
I mean, if you get the venti, it's one.
right?
Well, I saved that money.
But the value that it brings and the security that it brings to our employees and the services that we can continue to provide and hopefully, you know, improve, it makes it defendable for me.
Another one that bothers me is the Parks and Rec expansion. That list of things they want to do. Is, to me, that's starting another monstrosity that will never shrink. It will continue to grow. You'll start with an administrator or whatever, director. Before it's over, you'll have a Parks and Rec department with 20 people doing nothing. And some of those kind of things, I wish we'd take a harder look at.
And I think we will, but you're
Yeah.
worried about things that haven't happened yet at the price of
But
paying
that's
for
what's being
losing
asked.
things we have.
No, I was asked to provide a big picture list of items that could be considered with additional funding. Items that could be services that could be looked at in the future. So that's on the list. That doesn't mean you have to do it. That's just part of the overall list of these are the considerations for the additional funding.
Another example I'd give you, and I don't want to address this to Gary exclusively, but economic development is in our in our strategic plan. We knew we couldn't afford to do it at the county level, so we found a creative way to affordably be able to move economic development forward for $40,000 a year instead of $160,000. And all of these things get addressed one at a time. I also want to point out, piggybacking a little bit of what you said, Rhonda, is in the 1980s, when this was first implemented as a indefinite. So based on my research, out of 83 counties, there was only 11 of them that said indefinite. So we were already put at a disadvantage, and I can't get into their heads and understand why they decided to do that. It would take a lot of work to understand. What I haven't looked at is how many special millages have occurred since that time, because you really got to add those into that 3.29 to 5.29. You know, how much has it really dropped? What was decided is we'll let the voter decide on what they want. Sounds like a great idea, but the other side of that message is I don't trust the commissioners with making these decisions. And what we need to learn is that there are some special millages that can have pretty robust surpluses. And if it was in the general fund rather than in that special millage, we could use that to augment needs where they needed to be for that year. I hope I'm making myself clear. We've lost that opportunity. And what did we end up with? 12 or 13 special millages? Keeping in mind that part of this proposal is starting the process of rolling back some of those special millages. And we're taking baby steps, but I think there's 3 included in this solution.
Mm-hmm.
Which is not gonna be explained in the millage proposal, right? We're gonna explain it.
Correct. It can't be. So the way that the millage language is put forward, it's a real bummer that, you know, how it has to be. But the language is very, very bland. It's just, do you want to levy this much for the county, this much for the townships, and this much for the ISD? It doesn't give you this opportunity to say why or what's part of that. It's just, shall the tax limitations be established for a 2-year period for the county of Benzie and the townships and school districts within the county, the aggregate of which shall not exceed. And that's what it's going to say. And that's it. And so that's even the harder part is it's the shall not exceed of the overall picture, not shall not exceed for the county, shall not exceed for the township. It's the overall picture. Now it does go on to break out the 3, but still, you know, many people won't continue to read, right? They're going to read the question and stop.
Right.
And
It
so-
doesn't tell you that if this passes, that the county intends to roll in 3 of the
X, Y, and
special
Z.
They
millages.
also have.
It doesn't tell you that every township has the discretion to levy up to that point. They don't have to levy the whole thing, and it doesn't tell you that the ISD remains unchanged. I mean, this is important information that we cannot put in the verbiage.
Unfortunately.
If I could offer this, today, I think what we're attempting to do is just demonstrate that there's a real need. There's a lot of effort being put into this forecast. And I want to use this forecast and the forecast that we had a third party do in, when was that, 2018 or 19?
19.
2019, to show that
We're-
it's not just us forecasting this. This was also forecasted by an independent party. And this is the education process that we're starting, because we need to begin to develop an educational plan now and not wait until July to start doing that.
I'd argue you should be talking to municipalities already about this.
Yes.
Last night in the Village of Honor.
I'd say I've been talking to my district since 2017 about it, so we just got waylaid by COVID, that's all.
So what I provided in the packet, I'll add in the ballot language into it as well, but I mean, make copies of that for your individual townships. We can make those for you. That's educational material that they can have in their meeting places and that sort of thing. It's very important that you're bringing this up at every single meeting. I'm going to start going to the different township meetings as well and trying to speak to folks. But I can't do it alone. I need all of you to be out there also educating the community, asking the questions, answering the questions, helping them understand that this is why.
And perhaps, I mean, I'm interested to know what everybody thinks, but perhaps we urge our townships to make a decision to have the discussion in open meetings about should their millage be reset to the 1.12 or 1.21,
0.21.
what would you levy? You know, allay some of these fears that perhaps it wouldn't be the maximum. I mean, why not have these conversations? And we're having them. You
Mhm.
know, what do we intend to do if this passes? We're gonna roll in 3 millages.
Mhm.
So it looks like we're going from 3.23 to 4.2, but it's not a 1.2 increase, it's a 0.7 because we're rolling in millages.
Correct.
What do you intend to do as a township? What's the will of the board? Let's be really transparent about that. So everybody has an idea.
Mhm. It's very important that they're just as vocal as you.
Don't think you're gonna get that. Try, but
Well, in my township,
I think my township will have the discussion.
my township, one of them will stay down where they're at, or just maybe go a little bit. They're not
There
gonna,
you go.
they're never gonna
but they have.
do
But
the
that's great.
1.21.
That's great.
Good,
That's
then
what
be
their
clear about
people
that.
need to know.
But you've got a couple of them out there, it doesn't matter. They're gonna go maximum all the way.
Well, that's what the constituents and then would vote in new board if they were not
I'm
happy.
happy with it. That's why they won't talk about it. I don't,
Well, we can't control what those entities are gonna say.
I don't know. Can't control their fund balance.
So Katie, do you want to create a schedule? Would you like, to have groups of people attending, start a rotational kind of thing? I mean, we all go to our meetings as we're scheduled to do. Oh, you have a,
So I have all the ones here and I'm trying to peck through on which ones I'm gonna go to when and put them on my calendar. So I'll start this month looking
right,
at
but
stuff.
my question is, do you want commissioners with you?
Yeah.
Do you want,
I would anticipate one of you is gonna be there anyways, because it's gonna be your normal board meetings and you guys really do go to 99% of them. So I would, okay, I would anticipate that you're gonna be there and I'll let you know when I'm gonna go.
Well, there's gonna be other groups like the Kiwanuses and the Rotaries, and you need a commissioner with you when you do that.
Yes. That's fine.
There's lots of groups. You know, we can't advocate for it, but there's nothing that says that Friends of the County couldn't advocate for it.
Mm-hmm.
anything else we'd like to cover today on this?
What else do you want from me, as regard to information that you're sharing? I don't know how to condense that down to a one pager. I don't think it's possible. What more are you
gonna
thinking?
print this off, you said?
I can get you copies for
And I
your
can hand those out.
jurisdictions. But I'm just saying,
So-
what more do you want? Do you want PowerPoints? Do you want just this? Do you want me to try to condense it to a one pager? You know, I created a Benzie County Facebook that's quiet right now. You can't find it, but I'm going to start putting stuff on there so that folks can see it on social media. 'Cause love it or hate it, that's where people get their news. What more do you need from me to help you is what I'm after.
That worth doing posters in strategic places or billboards, or that would just way out of the price range for what we're trying to.
Well, we can't campaign, so you can't spend a bunch of money on
I mean,
this
just,
stuff.
no, just information things like, hey, did you know this is,
You can pretty much print pieces of paper off and hand it out. You can't have billboards, can't go out there with yard signs. We can't as a county.
Friends of the County.
Now, like for instance, Benzie Transportation Authority, there was an established Friends of BTA group that was a local grassroots group that was able to campaign on behalf of Benzie Transportation Authority. We can't do that, but if somebody were to create that, that's up to them. They could create a Friends of Benzie County, like Art alluded to, that's fine. But we as Benzie County officials cannot be out there campaigning. It's not allowed. We can educate, we can answer the questions.
Sure.
You know, we can do those things, but we just cannot campaign. We can't be spending a bunch of money on things. You know, our purpose is to educate folks so they understand the why.
So Katie, you asked, what else can you do? You've heard me say this many times. We got to have the elevator speech.
You know,
Because what that does is it says I give you this 3-minute spiel would you like to learn more? But I've got to be able to say very quickly what I'm attempting to do and kind of whet their appetite for more information.
You can't read that whole 6 pages in 3 minutes?
No, probably not.
Can't even see.
And I'd be glad to work with you on that, but
Yeah,
it's,
I'll
got to be able to boil it down.
I understand. So, okay, I understand. And I'll try to put together some sort of visual. I don't think PowerPoints are necessary. I don't think most of our townships even have that ability to do PowerPoints. And so it's probably not going to make any sense.
We do, but I wouldn't have a clue.
I think, buy-in from our, not buy-in, what's a better term, participation by other maybe elected officials in the county. I'm thinking the sheriff. I am wondering about our clerk and treasurer and register of, I mean, are there people willing to help get this message out beyond just the commissioners and administration? And I'm not saying, you know, a huge time commitment, but hearing from other people who understand the impact this will have one way or another. Michael would be an excellent person to have sitting next to you in a presentation to the community. You know, there's so many people here that do such great work that the operating millage supports.
I think there's a lot of people on this campus that are willing to be part of the message.
Awesome.
Yeah, I got to tell you though, I'm looking for independence. It's, if you look like you benefit from that decision, you have less credibility.
Correct.
If I can get somebody that doesn't benefit from it, but supports it, it's much more powerful.
And I'm wondering about the tax allocation committee as well. All those folks who digested all that information. Matt Olson was very profound. A lot of things that he said, he was very insightful. He would be a great ally to have in this effort.
I think you have that group. I
Yeah.
mean, between Kelly, Mandy, and Jason, I mean, we're all directly affected by this. And I think you have that ally in Matt for sure.
It goes back to what Art just said. They're gonna gain from it.
Correct. They're also
That's
gaining
something
from
to think
this.
about. Now, you talked about the 3 that are gonna roll in. Is
Mhm.
that in this thing somewhere
No,
that
that's-
I'm missing?
No,
That's what we have committed to do.
So-
But I would like it in this. thing that
I'm
we're gonna-
gonna add to this. I will add to this the proposal essentially that says, here's the proposal and this is what we intend to do. This is educational material for you to share with folks on, this is Headley, this is what it means, this is what proposal A did. And if a general operating millage is not there, this is what is affected. So the part that I didn't put in that I thought about this morning was the request itself. So I will add in an additional section to this, which is probably going to make it, 12 pages, but that's okay. That talks about, here's the request, here's the intentions of this request. That's what that means. Yeah.
You know, you were asking for other things. Put in there where we have rolled things back.
What do you mean?
Well, we didn't levy the full amount on
Oh,
a
yeah.
couple of things over the
Human
years.
resource officer.
Maples.
And just to let them know, because I don't want the school scenario to come back on us. Oh, we're not gonna do that. And 2 minutes later, it's back on the ballot.
That's what you're fighting against.
I'm fighting against people that think I'm lying to them.
Yep.
Don't appreciate. And I did have some concerns with the tax reallocation board. Some of the things that were said about the commissioners in the county. Really had a heartburn over some of that. So I'm not sure that's as right thrown out there either.
Well, I think that we can find people that'll help support this effort. That, I'm personally willing to put the time in to talk to individuals.
Len, you've had to be brought up to speed rather quickly. Is there any of this that's lost on you, or, I mean, are you,
No, it's relatively easy concept.
yeah,
You're raising a general fund basically versus all these little ones that aggregate up. I mean, so we're saying, look, overall, we're not gonna burden the public by having every 5 minutes another small village out there. We're trying to reset something that has been ongoing for 40 years, you know, and by and large, we've been pretty steady as it goes, no matter where the economy's going, right? We've had this same rate since 1982, but that's hampered our overall effectiveness and it will affect us negatively over the next couple of years. So we're trying to do a reset to get it to where our heads above water a little bit, so we can continue to do what we're at least doing now.
I just want to correct you in one spot. We haven't had the same rate for 40 years. We've rolled back. So we started at 5.29 mils.
Right.
In 1982, we've rolled back to
three-
3.2.
Yeah.
So, and that's been a
Okay.
slow process over those
But it's
40
been
years.
3.2 for the last,
Year.
it's only been a year, huh?
Yeah, that keeps rolling back. Most years it
Comes up
rolls
and then
back.
rolls back, comes up, rolls back.
No, it
Oh,
doesn't
nothing
come back
goes
up.
That's,
It just keeps rolling
It
back.
never
The property
goes back.
values
We're losing ground every, one
Every
step forward, two
If
steps
it's-
back every year.
Mhm.
based on the rate of inflation.
But no, we
Correct.
never take a step forward. It's always a step back.
We've not, our electorate has never had the opportunity to vote to reset us,
Okay.
to move us upward. They've
That's all
never
we're
had
asking
that.
for this time.
We are asking
Wow.
for a small increase based on how far we've rolled back.
what would I think be helpful is spend some time with Katie. Let her bring you up to speed, because a lot of what you said is like partial truths, partial understandings. But I wouldn't want you out there delivering the message
No,
right
not
now.
yet. No.
Okay?
That's what a lot of people probably have is partial truths.
And, you know, we act like we're breaking new ground here.
No.
But I tell you what, every 83 counties in the state, we're one of like 3 or 4 counties that don't ask their electorate to reset each year or whatever that frequency is. This is not new. It's new to Benzie County, which it shouldn't have been, but it is. But new to the state of Michigan, not at all.
So what does this taxpayer have to complain about?
Say again?
No, I'm serious. I'm not. Commissioner
I
hat,
know, I
putting a
didn't hear you.
taxpayer hat on, trying
I
to
didn't
think.
hear you.
So I've been here 4 years and I haven't seen a whole lot of difference in what I've been paying. So if I'm paying $9,000 a year in property taxes with summer and winter, is it gonna go to 10,000 or is it gonna go to 9,200? I mean, to me, I'd wanna know,
It says right in there, if your property value's at 200,000,
right?
it's going up about $16 a year.
Okay.
It gives you the math in there so that you can calculate it. I am looking at trying to somehow establish a calculator on our website so that people can figure that out on their own. Other municipalities have done that when they've, had this as a ballot item. They have calculators within their website so that folks can figure it out on their own. I'm trying to figure something out like that for us. That's why I gave the math, but it'd be nice to give people like a calculator for them to figure it out.
We're stressing over this. And last year, the voter agreed to give a Benzie bus nearly the same lift that what we're asking for.
Put animal control village out there and see what happens. Or EMS. Some things will fly, but you throw the sheriff's department out there as an operating thing,
Well,
out of war.
I wish though you'd that was a lot of years ago when that happened. And I think that comparing too much to things that happened 10, 15, 20 years ago almost does us a disservice because the general temperature of Benzie County is very different today than it was 10, 15, 20 years ago. And so we have to be careful how we're saying those things because Benzie County is very different today than it was then.
Is anybody looking at last year's road commission debacle? As something to look at? I mean, that was,
I'm still hearing bad things about that too.
Mm-hmm.
A little different because they were asking to build a building.
okay, it wasn't just a general ask, it was a
And
specific,
in my opinion, I don't think there was enough education
okay.
put out there. That's just my opinion only. I've seen that with other millages even. I don't, I'm not going to use other examples because it identifies people and I don't want to do that. But we've had other examples where we didn't do a good job. So if you're suggesting, what can we learn from those things?
Exactly.
What I learned from it, starting back with the school a few years ago, it's about education. And the average voter goes into the ballot and they look at the ballot language, they go to cast their vote, and the ballot language is so confusing.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, sometimes, and I don't know if it says this on this ballot language, but it talks about, well, part of your money might be used. It's not,
doesn't.
okay. But in some ballots, it says part of your money is going to be used to fund Frankfurt DDA. Well, if I'm in Thompsonville, what do I care? What
Yeah.
they don't know is that it doesn't affect you in Thompsonville, but the language is too ambiguous.
Brownfield and.
Yeah.
So the only other thing that I'll make note of, and I just want you to be aware of this, is that Benzie Central Schools intends to seek a sinking fund millage also on the August ballot.
A renewal.
Not technically. So I want you to be aware of that as well, is that's part of this, right? It's not part of this in the sense we're not connected in any way, but the average taxpayer in Benzie County doesn't see it as separate. And they're not going to see that we're completely two different funding sources in the sense of school funding versus local government funding. So I want you to be aware that that conversation is going to be happening in the community as well, which, as you've talked about before, the school does have this negative, persona of they put it on the ballot 13 times to get it approved or whatever it is. So I want you to be aware of that as well. When it comes to their sinking fund, though, from my understanding is they will actually be asking for a decrease in the levy. But it will be a new millage because it's new language, because the laws surrounding sinking funds have changed to allow for the purchase of transportation as part of those funds. And because their original sinking fund did not include transportation, they have to redo the millage. So it will be a new millage, but it will be less of a levy, is what I'm being told.
And in terms of confidence to the voter, this is the same group of people that said, yeah, if you approve our building millage, we won't collect the sinking fund anymore. And not only are they still collecting it, but they're.
So I'm just making you aware, it's the
Yes.
same timeline as us. So you have to be aware of those conversations that are happening on that side of the coin too.
And again, I think we need to be consistent about how we respond to that.
That is correct.
Good conversation, folks. Anybody have anything to add before we move on? Okay, with that said, I will open the final public comment.
Oh, shoot. Oh, I just say.
A couple of things, and this is actually stuff I noted last week, but it brought up comments, 2 weeks ago, but it brought up comments that you had said. You said that Roscommon's, part of Roscommon's fault was because they didn't get ahead of it. And I think you guys are in a good place. However, you're already behind it. 2 weeks ago, as soon as your meeting was over, the media put out that you were raising taxes.
Mhm.
And every social media click after that was nope, 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 nope. With no education. They probably didn't even click on the article. So I doubt maybe the media will say, you're going to be in the red in 2 years if you don't, but I don't know that they're going to, that's not clickbait, or maybe it is, but I don't think it's supportive. So you're already behind because people are already saying nope because of one media outlet who put what was true. There's an increase, but they all think you're just raising taxes. So the information to the public is already behind. Just wanted you to be aware that that article that's out there. And then, I think that the public would prefer a one-stop, and this is just gonna make work for Katie, but a one-stop, a short URL that links to, what it is you're talking about. Where do I find this meeting on video is very informative.
Mhm.
However, when you go to your website and you click on, how do I learn stuff? It's, like even the tax advisory link right now says to go to YouTube and find the link. And so you already told me to click 3 different places to find what I'm looking for. I'm not that interested. If the website had a link to this meeting because it was relevant, if the website had a link to the tax advisory, YouTube channels directly, instead of me having to go to YouTube and then, whatever, maybe it would be quicker for the attention span of the people that are out there at this point.
So even right now, if you go to our website, you got to scroll halfway down to find the tax advisory information. I think, sorry, admin or whoever, IT or whoever does the website has to keep putting that on top and has to keep refreshing it with
It's
your
me.
paperwork with how to, I want a link that clicks to this meeting. I would put that on there. This is the most recent conversation about, the Headley, and it's just a YouTube link right to here instead of going, go to YouTube, then find this, then subscribe, and then do all the things. So everybody has a shortest attention span. Like I said, even those people who said nope, probably didn't even read the article because you got to pay to read the articles on some of those things. So they're just, it's all got to be very short and quick. And if you all had like I said, a short URL or that's a website link that goes right to, like, don't just say go to our website and find out more information. I
I'd
gotta
actually-
click and then click and then click and click.
I'd actually
That's my recommendation.
add on to that, Rebecca.
Of course, public.
I would almost say shorten this whole meeting if you can just put the Headley discussion. And that way people don't have to listen to, not that it's not important, but the housing
Thought
stuff
it
that we
was.
talked about, right? If they're just interested in the Headley discussion, they could click on it and start with the Headley discussion.
Instead of trying to determine what time of the meeting did that start.
Yeah. I'll have to figure out how to manipulate these videos to do that.
He'll help you.
I think I could say that for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm just saying that I think would be, if people want to watch these things, fantastic.
Well, and I think you make a really good point regarding that too, is we're gonna start putting this stuff out on social media. And it would be nice to put out these clips, right? Versus, well, here's the 3-hour meeting and you need to click on 1 hour and 22 minutes. It would make sense. So we can try to figure out how to cut down these videos and try to just do clips. I think that would be helpful. Also, for the local news media, I did send him this specifically and asked him to ensure that his statements within his article are true and factual, and that the information is a little clear for the community.
Well, actually, Gary, he said it was a unanimous vote. You had voted
They
against.
screwed that up too, huh?
Generally would have corrected him, but I thought this works.
Oh,
Sometimes he passes or goes to sleep, so
Rebecca, your comments are right on.
yeah.
thank you.
Any other public comment? Seeing none, I'm going to close public comment and I would look for a motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Or
All in favor?